Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys Football. Taking a look at a 2023 Seattle Seahawks NFL mock draft. This is a very fun team to draft for. You obviously have 2 first-round picks. You have a lot of draft capital from that Russell Wilson trade. And that Seattle Seahawks roster is a pretty strong roster. They obviously had a phenomenal finish to the 2023 season. And it's a very fun team to look at. Before we get into it, I just want to say thank you to you guys. These are always super fun videos to do. If you guys are a friend of the channel, we specialize more in the evaluation of these college football prospects that are heading to the NFL draft, and it's a fun exercise to kind of talk with some of the NFL fans. What position fits? What position needs do you guys particular teams have? So again, we appreciate the support you guys have shown. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And more importantly, let me know in the comment section what you guys think. What time the team fits do we need? We'll be certainly running back another Seattle Seahawks NFL mock draft in the future. So again, the support means a lot. Let me know in the comment section what you guys are thinking. Let's get into this one. Again, picking 5 overall, and this is a phenomenal spot for Seattle. You obviously have 2 teams that need quarterbacks. The Houston Texans and the Indianapolis Colts are almost a lock to take a quarterback. And then there might be another team that trades inside to that top 4 that might take another quarterback. And if 3 quarterbacks go in the first 4 picks, Seattle's looking at a phenomenal prospect, whether it's Will Anderson, whether it's Jalen Carter falling to 5. And I think there's a lot of things you can entertain. And obviously that doesn't work out. In my opinion, you're probably listening to talks. Like if the Raiders want to go trade up to 5 and take Will Levis, I think you're entertaining that. If you're Seattle, you trade down to 7 and you have a chance at getting a guy like Myles Murphy, Tyree Wilson. If you're at 5 and we're not doing any trades, I think the no-brainer is Myles Murphy. And I get the discussion between Tyree Wilson and Myles Murphy. And evaluating both the prospects, it seems like the narrative is that Tyree Wilson has way more upside than Myles Murphy. And although he might have some more upside, Myles Murphy is still a freak. I mean, he came into Clemson as a top 10 player nationally. He's been very, very productive for 3 straight seasons at Clemson. He's the younger prospect. And he also has a much, much higher floor. Like when he goes to the NFL, he's going to be very good. He's phenomenal against the run, probably the best edge defender against the run in the class, which is something Seattle struggled in. And he's a guy that I think can add a little bit more tools to his pass rush game. I think his ceiling is extremely high, and I don't think you pass on a guy like Myles Murphy. He was a top 3 prospect coming into the year. Moved him down a little bit because the 2022 film wasn't great, but he's still a top 5 prospect in my opinion, and he's at a position in need for the Seattle Seahawks, and I think that's kind of a no-brainer here. At pick 20, I don't mean to just go off PFF's board, but Jordan Addison, Jackson Smith-Njigba are 2 guys that you really like. I'm leaning Jordan Addison because you look at that Seattle depth chart and what that wide receiver room looks like. I love DK. I love Tyler Lockett. I think they could use a 3rd wide receiver. I like Noah Fant. But again, Geno Smith showed chops of being a very good quarterback, and I think you're going to try to give him another weapon on the offensive side of the ball and then kind of use some of those day 2 picks to address more on the defensive side. Jackson Smith-Njigba, Jordan Addison are my 2 top wide receivers left on the board. I'm going to lean Jordan Addison because I think he's a little bit more multidimensional. You still can keep Tyler Lockett more in that slot, and Jordan Addison can be more of a boundary. Jackson Smith-Njigba was hurt all of 2022, and in 2021, the film is phenomenal. But you have a lot of question marks on if he can play on the boundary, if he can play on the outside. Jordan Addison, you don't have as many of those question marks. He was phenomenal in 2 offenses. He was great at Pitt in 2021. He was great at USC, and he's a guy that he's not be the flashiest guy. He's a little wiry, but he's really good at the position. He creates separation. I'm going to go Jordan Addison at pick 20. And this is where you probably start addressing the defensive side of the ball with that pick 37 and pick 51. At 37, I mean, O'Cyrus Torrence being left on the board is enticing. And maybe you're looking at the interior offensive line. I don't think it was great. I think Phil Haynes is also up on contract as well. So the depth might be hurting a little bit. John Michael Schmitz sitting at 37. I think this guy is going to be a day 1 prospect when it's all said and done. It's a position that Seattle wants to address. Now, O'Cyrus Torrence is probably my higher on my big board, but John Michael Schmitz is the best center in this class. And so you really could go either way. I think I'm going to lean O'Cyrus Torrence, and I really like John Michael Schmitz. He had a phenomenal Senior Bowl, but O'Cyrus Torrence, I think, is just such a lock to be good at the next level. John Michael Schmitz is an older prospect. He's been at Minnesota for what? I think this was his 6th year. Osiris Torrance is a mammoth. He's 340 pounds, and there's a lot to like about his game in the run game and in pass protection. Didn't give up a single sack all year. I think Osiris Torrance is going to he's a plug-and-play guy. You bring him in, and he's going to start on that interior. John Michael Schmitz probably starts day one as well, but I just leaning Osiris Torrance based on best player available at this spot. Pick 51. This is where I think you kind of look at what these teams need. Edge defender, defensive line. You already got Myles Murphy. Maybe you look on that interior defensive line because I don't think that play was great. Quentin Jefferson, certainly not it. Keanu Benton, he had a phenomenal Senior Bowl. Keandre Coburn as well. I like Moro Ojomo. All three of these guys. This is the sweet spot, I think, for addressing that defensive line, especially on the interior. I want to check the linebackers too, see if Jack Campbell's still on the board from Iowa. He's not. So I'm probably not going linebacker here. We're going to go on the interior defensive line, and you have a lot of good options. Keandre Coburn's more of that. He's kind of pigeonholed into kind of being a run stuffer, nose tackle, one tech kind of guy. 6'2", 340 pounds. He's like a fire hydrant. He takes on double teams extremely well. Keanu Benton, very good in the run, but adds a lot more in the pass rush. And then Moro Ojomo was a little bit more undersized and much more of a pass rusher from the inside. But man, is he tough and physical in the run game as well. I think I'm going to go Keanu Benton because I think I know he's going to be very solid. I have some questions about Moro Ojomo. He's not 300 pounds. What's he going to play? I feel like he's more of a three tech, not a true kind of interior one tech nose tackle kind of guy. Keanu Benton, much more of a guy that you're playing on first and second down. He's phenomenal against the run, but he also can provide some pass rush as well from the inside. It was something that when you watch the 2021 film to 2022, he clearly addressed that pass rush. And I love getting a guy from the interior that's not just a one-dimensional kind of defender like Keandre Coburn kind of is. We're going to go get Keanu Benton, and that might be my favorite pick of this draft. I think Keanu Benton has a chance to get into that first-round discussion as well. He had a phenomenal Senior Bowl. Now, at pick 83, this is probably where you're maybe taking a look at this linebacker class. I do like Isaiah Foskey. I like Keandre Coburn as well. Two guys that fell. I want to make sure I have these free agents squared away. I think you could maybe look at an outside cornerback too. This cornerback class is phenomenal. And you might even go with a guy like Tyreek Stevenson or Jalen Jones. Jalen Jones, kind of very similar to Tyreek Woolen. He's a bigger, longer, fast, physical cornerback. And Seattle bet on this traits with Tyreek Woolen last year, who's one of my favorite cornerbacks in that class, just because you can't teach the 6'4", long arms, and 4.3 speed. Jalen Jones is going to test very similar, and I feel like the Seattle Seahawks might kind of lean towards a cornerback like that. I like Kobe Bryant kind of playing more of that nickel cornerback role, but I would like to get a guy that Tyreek Woolen and Jalen Jones. That's kind of a nasty cornerback duo, if you will, and you're both young on rookie deals. I think that one would make a lot of sense. I'm much higher on Jalen Jones than most. I do like Tyreek Stevenson a lot too. He's very physical on the line of scrimmage. Julius Brents is a nice option as well. I think we're going to stick with Jalen Jones. Again, he was another guy that's dripping with athleticism. Came into Texas A&M as a 5-star prospect. We're going to bet on the traits. It's been working for Seattle. I think Seattle put together a phenomenal draft class in 2021. And again, why it's so fun to do another Seattle Seahawks mock draft in 2022 is they have a lot of picks. And they have the potential, because it looks like this draft class from 2021 was very solid. They have Joe Tippmann. We're going to get Joe Tippmann. He's going to be a day one starter too. He's 6'4", 320 pounds. I love his film. Joe Tippmann, this is like a no-brainer pick. John Michael Schmitz is the best center in the class, but if you're asking me for NFL draft sleepers, Joe Tippmann is one of them. I really like his game from Wisconsin. He's a bigger center, but he's a mauler in the run game, and he's pretty good pass protector. He had a lot of penalties. He gave up some pressures, so you don't love that. But I think I do like Olu as well. There's some really good centers that you can take later on. Joe Tippmann, Olu, both very, very solid options. I have them, I think, 3. I'm going to check my big board here. 3 and 4 ranked centers behind Steve Avila and John Michael Schmitz. You could go either way. I think I'm going to go Olu. If you guys know I'm a Michigan fan. Olu Atimi came into Michigan. He is just as steady as they come. And if you're looking for a steady Eddie center, I think Olu's had much more consistent film than Joe Tippmann, who flashed some serious traits. But Olu was just so good for 14 straight games from Michigan. He was a first-year transfer, but kind of was the leader on that offensive line. There's so much to like about Oluwatimi. He's a very good athlete when it comes to working up to the second level, picking up those linebackers. You got to love a little Michigan State with Kenneth Walker. I like it. And Oluwatimi, I think also is probably a day 2 pick. Pick 153. This is I want to take a look at this linebacker class. I feel like Seattle wants to get a linebacker a little bit earlier than we were able to address it. Henry To'oTo'o is probably the most consistent, steady linebacker. Played that Mike position for Alabama for 2 straight years after transferring from Tennessee. His Tennessee film from 2020 was the best film he had. He looked not so good in 2021, comes back to school, looked better in 2022, but I'm worried that he's just not athletic enough to be a great linebacker at the next level. But he's so good, and he was solid. He's the best linebacker on the board, and again, he's not going to be an all-pro. I don't think he's athletic enough to be an all-pro Bobby Wagner type guy, but he is a very, very good linebacker who gets to position. I want to see him put on some strength too. He wasn't necessarily the most physical linebacker either, but in terms of filling gaps, doing your role, doing your assignment, he's going to be good on special teams. This is probably where you get Henry To'oTo'o. I think that's the right value too. I have him much more closer to like an end of day 2 pick, round 3. 156 now. Yusur Abdullah. I want to take a look at another maybe traitsy edge guy. Like that's what Pete Carroll loves to do. And there are some guys that have some, like Ali Gay, his film stunk. Like in 2022, he was not very good, but you can't teach the 6'5", 34-inch arms. He has a phenomenal get off. He's not necessarily the most physical edge rusher, which is concerning when it comes to stopping the run game. But you got a guy like Myles Murphy on the other side who is like that. And so maybe you take kind of a flyer on Ali Gay, who, I mean, he has all the traits to be an elite edge rusher, kind of like Michael Clemens. I'm not sure if Seattle Seahawks fans are familiar. He's a rookie for the New York Jets last year coming out of Texas A&M, where like this guy was yoked up, long arms, explosive dude, and just didn't really have the pass rushing chops to put it on the field. The New York Jets bet on the traits, brought him in, and he looked much better as a rookie. Ali Gay, I feel like, could have a similar trajectory where it's like you can't teach the 6'5", the length, the athleticism that he has, but what you can teach is the pass rushing chops, is that pass rushing technique, and I think that's what you need. Probably teach him a little bit more play strength as well because he's not very good against the run, but in terms of like an elite pass rusher, I think he could be that. And again, when you're picking round 5, you're going, give me the ceiling. Give me the guys who have a lot of potential to be very, very good players at the next level. One more pick at 197. Yeah, I get it, Clayton Tune. You might be taking a look there. You kind of see if Seattle needs like any position that interior offensive line, wide receiver. We could take a look at the wide receiver class again because I just don't think the room is that deep, and I know we already addressed it once. Justin Shorter would be an interesting pick. I'm not saying he's DK Metcalf. That would be disrespectful to DK Metcalf, but Justin Shorter came into Penn State as a top 10 national recruit. He's a bona fide 5-star. He's 6'4", 220, has phenomenal speed. He just struggled with injuries. He transfers to Florida. Justin Shorter, I would have liked to see on a better passing team. Like the quarterback play with Emory Jones and then Anthony Richardson, there was just never any consistency. They didn't really want to throw the ball. They were an offense that wanted to run the football a lot more. He's a guy with dripping with potential. And again, we talked about taking upside with Ali Gay. I think you can do that with Justin Shorter here at pick 197. He's a guy that's getting pushed on boards because he struggled with some drops. He struggled with some injuries, but he is, again, when you talk about things you can't teach 6'4", 4'3" speed. Justin Shorter has that. I'm interested to see what he runs at the combine because I think he's going to fly. Let's go get Justin Shorter at pick 197. He's been one of my favorite wide receivers to target late in these rounds because he's so talented. He's different. Now, the film wasn't necessarily great, but he could be so good at the next level. I think it's worth taking a flyer on late round 6. And if you're just an NFL fan in general or like doing like fantasy, Justin Shorter is a guy to keep your eye on because I think in terms of like boomer bust potential, like this guy could boom at the next level. Wow, this is the highest grade we've ever had. And we kind of went with PFF's grades for the most part. Like Myles Murphy falling at 5. They needed an edge. We got the second best edge rusher in class. Jordan Addison, I think it would make a lot of sense for Seattle to target a wide receiver at pick 20. You'll have your option probably of Jordan Addison, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Quentin Johnson. One of those guys will fall. I think the wide receiver room could use a little bit more juice, and you can address that there. And then Osiris Torrance, John Michael Schmitz, those guys would be phenomenal options at pick 37. And if you don't get those guys, getting a guy like Olu or Joe Tippmann from Wisconsin later, early day 3, late round 2, or late day 2, I should say, would be a nice option. Keanu Benton, I like him a lot more than PFF does. I think he's going to be a guy that he had a phenomenal Senior Bowl. I think he'll move up some boards. Jalen Jones is another guy that I kind of lean towards taking the guys with high potential. I did it with Tariq Woolen last year. I think it's worked out pretty well. Like, take the guys with traits you can't teach and then teach them how to play football at a high level. Once it becomes their job, I think it starts to click a little bit more. Jalen Jones is one of those guys. He's 6'2". He's got great speed. He's a physical cornerback. And again, you did the same thing with Tariq Woolen. It seemed to work out. Henry To'oTo'o, he's not my favorite linebacker in the class, but I took the value there at pick 153. That seems to make sense. I think a lot of teams have him more as a late day 2, late round 3 kind of guy. Ali Gay, another guy that I'm higher on than PFF, as well as Justin Shorter. A solid B for a draft grade. That's about as high as I've ever gotten at PFF. And we kind of did follow in the early rounds PFS ranks. Like Myles Murphy, they have him as the number 5 prospect. I have him as the number 5 prospect. Myles Murphy's going to be good. I think people got tired of talking about him and wanted to talk more about Tyree Wilson. Myles Murphy is the better prospect. Tyree Wilson, I should say, has a very, very high floor, but just wasn't that consistent. Again, appreciate you guys for checking us out. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. More importantly, Seattle fans, we're running it back probably in a couple weeks. Let me know what I need to address and then come back and check out our next mock draft for the Seattle Seahawks. We appreciate you guys. And again, do enjoy the content. Consider subscribing to the channel. That helps us out.